Special Grade Sorcerers, the unrivaled pinnacle of power in Jujutsu Kaisen, but with that power comes a certain degree of complexity. So today we are going to explain the 6 Special Grade Sorcerers in Jujutsu Kaisen. Let's get into it. We'll be getting started with the GOAT, the strongest sorcerer in Jujutsu Kaisen, Gojo Satoru. Gojo has 2 aspects that make him incredibly powerful: the Limitless Technique and the 6 Eyes. Contrary to popular belief, the vast majority of Gojo's strength comes not from his Curse Technique, but from the 6 Eyes. The 6 Eyes are an attribute that gets passed down from generation to generation of the Gojo clan. They give the holder a huge boost to perception, allowing them to perceive everything that has cursed energy with high accuracy, as well as things with 0 cursed energy. Gojo is the only person that has ever sensed Toji from behind, and it is because of the 6 Eyes. In addition to this, the 6 Eyes gives Gojo near perfect optimization of cursed energy, allowing Gojo to use his curse techniques with next to 0 cursed energy expenditure. This allows Gojo to fight as if he has infinite cursed energy, which lets him make the most out of his insane curse technique, the Limitless Technique. Before I get into the Limitless Technique, I do want to mention that the specifics of this technique are intentionally overcomplicated, so don't feel bad if you only understand the effects of the technique and not its full depth. The Limitless Technique is an incredibly powerful technique that essentially allows the user to manipulate space at an atomic level via cursed energy. This is a huge task on its own, and it is implied that without the 6 Eyes, Limitless is almost impossible to use, as the perception and cursed energy required to manipulate space at an atomic level is not attainable without them. But Gojo has the 6 Eyes, which gives him access to 4 of the most broken abilities in Jujutsu Kaisen. First, we have Infinity. This is the neutral state of the Limitless Technique. A basic interpretation of Infinity is that it is the power to stop, but it is a bit more complicated than that. Infinity is the convergence of an unending series. Anything that tries to hit Gojo will never reach him because Infinity divides the finite space between the aggressor and Gojo infinitely. It's similar to how 2 numbers can be divided over and over again, but no matter how small the fraction gets, it will never divide to 0. This technique is super powerful for Gojo as it basically prevents him from being hit by attacks, and he can keep it up 24/7, providing him unlimited defense around the clock. For the most part, this technique is great, but it's not infallible. There are 3 main ways to get through Infinity. The first is domain amplification, the second is putting Gojo into a domain expansion, and the third is a curse tool with the technique stoppage effect. The curse tools with this effect are the Spear of Inverted Heaven and the Black Rope. This quality is also possessed by Angel's technique, Jacob's Ladder. The next technique is Blue, which amplifies the Limitless Technique and brings negative concepts into reality. These negative concepts, like -1 apples, are impossible, and create negative distance, which is also impossible. This negative distance forces space to correct around it, creating a magnetic effect. We've seen this technique take 2 forms. The first is the normal form that we see when it's introduced, and the second is the maximum output version, which we saw him use to destroy the courtyard against Toji. Blue can also be used to compress space between Gojo and his target, increasing his speed and force in the process. This application has made Gojo the fastest sorcerer in his era. Following Blue is the opposite, Red. Red is the curse technique reversal of Blue, and as such it has the ability to repel. This technique requires an understanding of reverse curse technique, and it is extremely difficult to pull off. It requires double the cursed energy of Blue as well, but it is an extremely destructive force, and it seems to be Gojo's main method of attacking. The final piece of the Limitless Technique is Hollow Purple. This ability combines Red and Blue, creating both motion and reversal. In the process, it creates imaginary mass, which does massive damage to anything it touches and launches out of Gojo's finger in a large beam. There's a common misconception that Hollow Purple erases everything in its path, but that's just not the case, as we have seen people survive it in the manga. In addition to the Limitless Technique, Gojo can also use anti-domain techniques like Simple Domain and Falling Blossom of Emotion. He's also able to use Reverse Curse technique, and he's capable of landing black flashes. And in addition to all that, he is of course capable of using his domain expansion, Infinite Void, which is a barriered lethal domain that has the unique attribute of immobilizing the opponent by forcing infinite amounts of information into their brain. This effect also causes brain damage after the domain closes, and it can affect sorcerers and non-sorcerers for up to months after exposure. In the manga, we also learn that Gojo has the ability to restore curse technique burnout by healing his brain with reverse curse technique, but this technique is very dangerous, and it has rendered Gojo unable to cast his domain due to brain damage. Also in the manga, we learn that he is capable of casting his domain in 0.2 seconds, and that he's capable of casting his domain slightly faster than Sukuna. We also recently saw some new applications of the Limitless Technique, as we saw him use Infinity to launch a building at Sukuna, curve Red around a building, and use Blue at the last second before landing a punch in order to make the punch even stronger. Gojo is such a cool character, and while I'm sure I could make a whole video just talking about him and his abilities, we have to move on for now. So we're going to move on to Gojo's best friend, Geto. Geto's curse technique technique is cursed spirit manipulation, which, as the name implies, allows Geto to control cursed spirits. To gain control over a cursed spirit, Geto must first beat and exorcise it before consuming it as these little black and orange balls. These balls have been said to have the taste of an old dirty rag used to clean up vomit, which is just one of the most nasty descriptions I've ever heard. It's worth noting that cursed spirits 2 or more levels below Geto get exorcised automatically, so he really only has to beat grade 1 and special grade cursed spirits. The only exception to this is if a cursed spirit has formed a master-slave relationship with another cursed user, as this overpowers Geto's automatic exorcism. To get around this, the original master has to die in some way. Once Geto gains control over a cursed spirit, his control is absolute, and he is able to force the cursed spirits to do his bidding and use their abilities as he sees fit. At his highest, Geto had over 4,000 cursed spirits in his possession, and he used them to launch the night parade of 100 curses. During this time, he went to Jujutsu High School in an attempt to beat Yuta and obtain the Queen of Curses Rika, as he believed this would give him an edge over Gojo. During this fight, we see that Geto is an exceptional curse tool user and that his close combat skills are among the best in the series, if he doesn't get cocky. This fight also showed us Geto's maximum technique, Maximum Uzumaki. This technique combines all the cursed spirits in Geto's possession into one attack, creating a high energy condensed blast of cursed energy. This curse technique also has the secondary effect of giving the abilities of strong cursed spirits to Geto upon activation for a one-time use. However, it is unclear if Geto knew about this aspect of the ability, as we only see it used by Kenjaku, who we will be talking about later. Next, we have the King of Curses himself, Sukuna. At this point in time, we still do not know the root technique that Sukuna has, but we do know 2 of its offshoots. First, there's Dismantle, which is Sukuna's standard slashing attack. It is capable of cutting at a single sharpness, making it very effective against cursed spirits, inanimate objects, and weaker sorcerers. This is what we see Sukuna using most of the time. The other is Cleave, which adjusts itself to the toughness of its target to make sure it cuts down the target in one hit. This is mostly used on stronger opponents so Sukuna can fell them easily. Neither of these techniques are visible to the naked eye or the eyes of sorcerers, unless they're named Gojo. Both of these techniques are used in Sukuna's domain, Malevolent Shrine. Malevolent Shrine is a lethal barrierless domain that can have a radius of up to 200 meters. While active, everything within the range gets constantly slashed by both Cleave and Dismantle. Sukuna can specify targets within this range as well to ensure that Cleave and Dismantle are being used on their appropriate targets. This slashing will continue indefinitely until everything in the radius is destroyed or until Sukuna is rendered unable to sustain his domain. Sukuna is also capable of using the Open technique, which allowed him to create and manipulate flames in Shibuya. These flames were strong enough to kill Jogo and finish off Mahoraga, and they can also be used at a range if needed. Unfortunately, that's all we know about this technique as of now, and the true nature of this Open technique still remains a mystery to us at this point. In the manga, we learned of one additional ability Sukuna has, which is the ability to take over bodies by feeding a victim one of his fingers. We saw him use this ability to swap from Yuji's body to Megumi's, and since then he's been making excellent use of the 10 Shadows technique. After subduing Megumi, he quickly tamed 3 of the remaining shadows, those being Piercing Bull, a bull that gets stronger the longer it runs, Round Deer, a deer that heals through reverse curse technique and neutralizes cursed energy in the process, and of course Mahoraga, which has the ability to adapt to any and all phenomena, including infinity and infinite void. Much like Gojo, he is also currently unable to use domain expansion because of brain damage, but unlike Gojo, he is out cold. Next we have Yuta. Yuta is considered the second strongest sorcerer in Jujutsu society and is expected to fill Gojo's shoes if anything happens to him. Will he actually be able to fill those shoes? Probably not. Yuta is extremely powerful, but as of now, I don't really think he's anywhere close to the power of Gojo or Sukuna, and I don't think even he puts himself in the same category as them. However, Yuta is somewhat of a Jujutsu prodigy, as he ascended to the rank of special grade with only 1 year of experience. This ascent is mainly due to 2 factors. The first is his sheer amount of cursed energy. Yuta currently has the second largest pool of cursed energy in the series, surpassing even that of Gojo himself. He's able to use this large pool to reinforce his body far beyond what a first grade sorcerer is capable of doing, giving him more defense and offense along the way. The second reason for his ascent is Rika. Rika is Yuta's main curse technique, and she has a multitude of uses. She can act on her own if Yuta needs, following simple commands and instructions, but she can also connect with Yuta, and this is where the real strength comes from. Rika is capable of storing additional cursed energy for Yuta, and when a connection is maintained, he gains access to this cursed energy. She can also fight alongside Yuta when fully manifested, which can turn the tides of any battle. Fully manifesting Rika also allows Yuta to gain access to another curse technique, copy. The copy curse technique is pretty self-explanatory. It allows Yuta to copy any curse technique that Rika has in her arsenal. We don't know the exact conditions for him to copy an ability, but we know he at least needs to see the technique once. However, due to the strength of the technique, it is highly likely that there are additional conditions needed to copy a technique. A popular theory is that Rika must eat a body part belonging to the technique's original user. This is theorized due to how Yuta gained Uro's technique after Rika consumed her arm. At this point in time, we know Yuta has copied cursed speech, sky manipulation, an unnamed Shikigami technique, and this arm technique. However, it's also possible that this arm is a cursed tool that Rika is capable of storing. At this point in time, it is a little bit unclear as the wiki calls it a cursed weapon, but it does disappear after a domain expansion, implying that it is subjected to burnout in the same way that all other techniques are. And on top of all this, Rika also has a second form where the will of Rika Orimoto powers up the new Rika. This is signaled by the opening of her eye, and in this state she is capable of firing beams of cursed energy from said eye. However, Rika is not all powerful. The connection with her can only be sustained for 5 minutes in total, and it's also implied that she can be destroyed in that time frame to end the connection early. On top of Rika and his immense cursed energy, Yuta also has a domain expansion, but we do not know what it is yet because we never actually saw what it was. He also has the ability to use reverse curse technique on himself, and he can also output it as if it was cursed energy. Overall, Yuta has a ton of potential as a special grade, and I really hope we get to see more of him in the coming chapters. Following Yuta, we have Kenjaku, aka Pseudo Geto, aka Fake Geto, aka Mr. Monologue. Kenjaku has a lot of techniques, but his main one is body hopping. Body hopping is a curse technique that has allowed this psycho to live for over 1,000 years. By hopping from body to body, Kenjaku is able to essentially live forever, and if he body hops to the body of a Jujutsu sorcerer, he gains the curse technique of that sorcerer and retains the one from the body he was previously in. This allows him to technically use 3 techniques at once, but since he's currently in Geto's body, he can use even more via maximum Uzumaki. As much as I hate to say it, Kenjaku is a much better cursed manipulation user than Geto was. Not only is he able to get the most out of maximum Uzumaki, he also showed that it's possible to create a mini Uzumaki which acts as a, well, smaller Uzumaki. These smaller versions are still extremely potent as they were able to deal the final blow to Yuki, the final special grade sorcerer. He was also able to use Uzumaki to start the culling games by using idle transfiguration to activate the reincarnated sorcerers and do a whole bunch of other stuff. On top of this innovation with Uzumaki, he also revealed that cursed manipulation users can reinforce cursed spirits with their own cursed energy. This can make even the weakest of cursed spirits quite powerful, as we saw in his fight against Shozo. In addition to cursed spirit manipulation and body hopping, Kenjaku is also capable of using Kaori's technique, Anti-Gravity System, which allows him to resist gravity and was the reason he survived a black hole. However, Kenjaku prefers to use its cursed technique Reversal, which enforces heavy gravity on anyone within his immediate radius. And as if that wasn't enough, he also has his domain expansion Womb Profusion, but we don't know a lot about this domain except that it is barrierless and that it exerts a large force on anyone within its radius. Kenjaku basically serves as the man behind the curtain for the world of Jujutsu. He has been painstakingly creating the culling games for 1,000 years, creating binding vows with sorcerers and killing 6 Eyes users along the way. He is the creator of the death paintings and is also the mother of the main protagonist, Yuji, and he's also the one that came up with the plan to seal Gojo and is well on his way to merging all 100 million souls into Eren Yeager. And lastly, we come to Yuki Tsukumo. Yuki is unfortunately the special grade that we know the least about, and it will likely stay that way because, well, you know. Yuki's main technique is Star Rage or Bon Baye depending on the translation. This technique allows Yuki to give herself virtual mass, essentially making her hit as if she has much more mass than she actually does without the negative effects of having that mass. This essentially lets her hit really hard, to the point that in one blow she was able to punch through 2 arms and break the repeating cycle of the Star Corridor. She's also able to apply this technique to her Shikigami Garuda, which is capable of acting independently of Yuki or doing her bidding. We have seen Garuda turning into a soccer ball, being used as a whip, and being used as a restraint. Kenjaku also mentions that because of the nature of her technique, she is able to ignore concepts, implying that opposing curse techniques have no way to stop the technique that she applies to herself or Garuda. In addition to Star Rage, she also has Simple Domain and the ability to use reverse curse technique. She does also have a domain expansion, but we never get to see what it was. But she's probably one of the few characters whose technique is capable of surpassing their domain, as Yuki's trump card is the ability to turn herself into a black hole. When doing this, Yuki's body loses its ability ability to maintain its form due to having such a high amount of mass. As a result, this ability will kill Yuki in the process, as there's just no way for her to survive a black hole. It's stated by Kenjaku that if Tengen's barrier had not been there and Yuki had not held back the creation of the black hole, it could have consumed the world. In addition to her technique, Yuki was also a plasma star vessel, and that apparently gave her the ability to hear all the other vessels that were inside Tengen. As of now though, all that's left of her is a research book about souls. And those are the 6 special grades of Jujutsu Kaisen. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe. We just passed 10,000 subscribers and I want to thank everyone that has subscribed so far. It really does mean a lot to me to see this kind of support come out of the anime community. If you want to support me more directly, I do have memberships activated on this channel, but if you don't want to do that, that's totally fine. No pressure at all. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you again soon in a little while.